Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jim Kleiber Show today, September 23rd, 2020. It's a Wednesday. That means it's garbage day where I live, and garbage recycling and compost. Whew! What to talk about today? I read an article last night that was quite heavy for me. It was an article that a friend recommended on Facebook, and wasn't sure if I wanted to read it. It was an article on this website, Medium, where the author, a person who had worked a lot in video game design, especially video games that deal with war, wrote an article about 4 possible scenarios that would come out of the election this year in the US that might lead to a type of civil war. The author looked at historical examples of civil war and tried to find related scenarios. So, for example, if Joe Biden wins by a landslide, or if Joe Biden barely wins, or if there's a tie, or if Trump wins. And he looked, I think it was a he, I'm not sure who the author was exactly, but the author looked at various times throughout history to see what we may learn and what we may predict. Again, these are scenarios, so he looked at it from a game theory perspective. And it may not happen, but it definitely shook me awake. Yeah. Civil wars pit neighbors against neighbors and brothers against brothers, sisters against parents and parents against children. It's no way to live. And I felt a renewed sense of focusing not on the laws, but focusing on our relationships to each other and relationships to ourselves, because how would we as a society get to that point? And almost regardless of who wins the election, it's not going to go away unless we start paying attention to it. And when I say it, I'm talking about our anger, fear, distrust of each other. But I think it digs deeper than that. And I think it's a lot about our emotional state with the world. Do we believe that everything is going to collapse? Do we feel afraid? Do we feel hopeless? Or do we think that things are going to get better, and we feel courageous, and we feel hope? I tell you, I look at a lot of the political advertising on TV right now, and I see a lot of the conversations online, and yes, while they probably are the most extreme versions of what we're going through, right, the most exaggerated versions, some of it can be really, really mean, bitter, and dehumanizing. And I just wonder where it comes from, you know? I wonder, how do we start paying attention to what's going on with us? Not just our bank account, or not just our weight, or not just our job or our titles and things like this. Not just these external elements of recognition, but really what we're feeling on the inside. It seems like such a simple thing to do. I've said to myself, one of the most simple things we can do is ask ourselves the question, how do I feel? And yet simple is not easy. It's a surprisingly complicated question to answer. To take a word or a combination of words and put it on top of this biochemical swirl that I have going on inside my body, to, deal with the chemicals and deal with the sensations and the sounds and the feelings and the thumpings and all this stuff, like the heart beating faster and the different rhythms, and try to encapsulate all of that into a word about how I'm feeling. It's simple, but it's not so easy. At the same time, I think this is one of the gifts that we've been given as humans, is our ability to describe our internal state and describe with, I would say a large amount of precision as well. If maybe this is why it's so hard to deal with babies, right? Because with babies, if a baby's hurting, it just cries. And you ask the baby what's wrong, and the baby just cries. The baby can't give much more precise information. The baby often can't even point to what's wrong. And then as we get older, what's wrong? And then maybe the kid will point to his stomach or her tummy. Oh, it's my tummy hurts. If they get to that, the next level is communicating with words. My tummy hurts. And then as we get older, we can communicate with much more precision. Oh, it hurts on the left side of my back. I don't even have to point. I can just say it hurts on the left side of my back when I bend a little bit to the right. And now you can get the internal context on top of, supplied with kind of a movement context, just from words. And so we have a very strong ability, or a strong capability, to do this, I believe. And I just think we're not paying too much attention to it, or giving it that much respect, this ability to communicate how we're feeling. And so I look at a lot of the political ads out there, and it's, oh, these people are going to ruin your life. These people are going to do this. These people don't care about you. There's how does that make people feel? How do I feel when I watch an ad where it says that this group of people are going to come in and they don't care about me at all? I feel miserable. I feel lonely. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel depressed. I feel kind of hopeless. What? These are the people who are supposed to care about me and make decisions for me, and they don't care about me at all? More often now, when I hear some of these commercials, I almost feel skeptical. And that's how I want to feel. I want to feel skeptical when somebody says, this person doesn't care about you. I want to say, I don't know. Maybe they do. Skeptical of the skepticism, in a way. I think so many of us can become skeptical of the optimism or the care. Oh, this person's going to do their best. They're going to try to help you as much as they possibly can, and be like, I'm not sure if that person actually is going to try to help me that much. I think they're really corrupt and they're going to try to screw me over. But when I have that belief, I feel skeptical and afraid and kind of angry and suspicious. But when I have this skepticism towards the lack of care, I actually feel quite relaxed. Oh, these people are going to destroy your life. They don't care about you all. I'm not sure about that. Maybe they do care about me. They might care about me? Oh, they might have other stuff going on in their life where they're trying to care about me, but they're trying to also care about 330 million Americans. Oh, they're a human being. What are they feeling? So I think so often we can get stuck, not even paying attention to the emotions of ourselves or the emotions of the other person, with more intention or more clarity or consciousness about it. I don't like some of those words some of the time, but just this idea of communicating it and putting it into words or articulating it so that it's top of mind. I say this because, I worried about that article about Civil War. I felt quite scared at times reading through it. Like, this can't happen. So what's scared and some doubtful, but wanting to feel doubtful. I don't even know how to express that emotion. It's like thinking that it could happen, but also wanting it to not happen. But then I started to think about why we might be in this situation, and it reminded me of just how many of us might be struggling right now. How many of us are feeling lonely? How many of us are feeling embarrassed or ashamed that we haven't done more? How many of us are feeling guilty for contracting the virus and giving it to someone else? How many of us are feeling really angry at ourselves for having to fire people from a job, to let people go, lay them off? How many of us are feeling angry at ourselves for not finding a new job before we got laid off? How many of us are starting to question the relationships that we have in our lives? How many of us deeply, deeply miss some of our friends and human contact, physical touch? How many of us feel hopeless when we look at what's going on in the political situation? How many of us feel just numb? How many of us have numbed ourselves off to what's going on because 200,000 Americans have died? And many, many people have lost their jobs. And many people are possibly going to lose their homes. Yeah. I mean, so many emotions going around, so little conversation about them. And I think it's time we start talking about these things. And talking about them with ourselves, and talking about them with our neighbors and our friends and our relatives and our romantic partners, and with strangers. Talking about them on the internet, as scary as that may sound. Talking about how we feel. Because we're going to feel these things anyways, and if we don't start talking about them, they're just going to come out in some really weird ways. We still communicate them, maybe with our fists or maybe with our actions, but we can also stop some of those actions by communicating with our words. And I say this because I read an article today that it was called "The Dying Russians." And it was a book review from, I think, 2014, where the author reviewed two different books. One of them was called "Dying Unneeded," and the other one was called Russia's Peacetime Demographic Crisis. And the author, named Masha Gessen, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, talked about how Russia's population between, I think, the years 1992 and 2009 declined by 5%, which author states was something like the largest decline since World War II. And this was not even in a wartime setting. And so these authors were exploring what's going on with this mortality crisis in Russia. And they looked at so many different factors. And, is it HIV? Is it tuberculosis? Is it other STDs that are going unchecked? Is it this? Is it that? All these, is the fatty foods that they eat? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And they found that a lot of the deaths were coming from cardiovascular disease. And it said something like 30% more, like the deaths from cardiovascular disease in Russia during that time were 30% higher than the deaths from all causes in most Western European countries or something. And I mean, there's lots of statistics, and I don't know what, statistics can be bent in some ways, or at least some types of data can be bent in different ways. But it really got me thinking, and they went deeper and deeper, and the hypothesis they put forward was that it's hopelessness. That this belief that the future will not get better. Basically, I define hopelessness as something like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I think something bad will happen in the future. And hoping, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I think something good's going to happen in the future. So this hopelessness thing, I don't think anything's good's going to happen in the future. And on top of that, this almost lack of self-worth. Not thinking that people care about that person. You know, well, who cares about me? I'm useless. Why do people? Nobody needs me. I'm not contributing anything, and people don't even notice if I'm gone. I mean, a lot of language that I would think comes up in people who are feeling suicidal or with suicidal ideations. Just this, I don't matter, this indifference, disconnection from the world. And I don't know if that's what was happening in Russia or is happening in Russia. But it seemed to resonate with me because recently in the last couple of years, there's been some writing by, let me see if I get their names right. I'm experimenting with looking at websites at the same time. This book that came out recently called Deaths of Despair and the Future of Capitalism by Anne Case and Angus Deaton. And their work looks at, actually, they won the 2015 Nobel Prize for Economics. I'm just reading here directly from the website. For white Americans between 45 and 54, average life expectancy was no longer increasing. In fact, it was actually declining in a pattern seen almost nowhere on Earth. And this idea that so many Americans, especially white Americans, were dying of diseases of despair. So suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol overdose. I believe those were the primary ones. And I don't think that went away. I don't think it magically healed itself. I think if anything, it's deepened itself. That we're in a time right now where 200,000 Americans have died from this disease, from COVID-19. And again, the economic and social repercussions, we don't even know what they are yet. And one friend said it well. He says, what happens when isolation becomes a virtue? What are the implications when we start going back into maybe one of humanity's oldest ways of judging people as either clean or unclean? What trickle-down effects does this have on our interactions, our relationships, our institutions, our society, our nation, our interactions with other nations, our species? I don't know about you, but for me, it can feel heavy at times to just think about these things. And sometimes I like to be really light and boisterous, but I also recognize that sometimes life is heavy. And it's okay to slow down and feel a little bit sad and scared. I also think this is an opportunity for us to start paying attention to other things. When I say other things, again, I'm talking about not paying so much attention to our job title or our marriage status or our parental status or our all these different identities that we give to ourselves. But paying more attention to how we're actually feeling. Because you know what? There are people who are some of the richest people on this planet who probably are feeling deeply, deeply lonely and disconnected and don't trust really any people around them. They feel really scared that people are going to take advantage of them. Scared they're going to lose everything that they've worked their whole life for. Angry at things that they've done in the past or didn't do. Feeling deep regret. Who knows? And these are all people who have the quote unquote best titles in the world. You know, they have all the money, they have the well-respected job title or or position in society, and it doesn't matter. And there are other people who don't have a home who are filled with joy. You know, and it just really can run the gamut that, in a way, our external circumstances don't matter that much. Seems like a trick, you know? We spend so much of our life trying to receive all this external accomplishment. And then a lot of times when we get it, it just seems to poof, just magically disappear. It doesn't seem to satiate the soul. Ooh, that's a good word. It doesn't seem to quench the thirst that we have for life. It's just this empty promise sometimes. And so, I say so much of this talking about you and talking about us as a society, but a lot of it's really what's going on with me and this idea of trying to focus on what's going on with me internally, no matter where I am in the world, no matter what is happening to me outside. So just be, to feel angry, to feel excited, to feel happy, to feel joy, to feel sad, to feel confused, to feel uncertain, to feel doubtful, to feel relaxed, to feeling calm, to feeling cozy, to feeling all these different emotions. And to not have them be so tied to the external circumstances. I mean, it's a small story, but I was living in LA and I remember I wasn't sleeping well. And I was like, oh, I'm not sleeping well because there's this train that passes outside my window all the time. It's so annoying. Gosh, it's so loud. And I had the same excuse when I lived in Oakland. There's this garbage truck that comes in at this time of night and it's so loud and I can't sleep well. But now I'm living in a suburb and it's super quiet at night. And I've realized I'm not sleeping well because I don't hear the silence. It's super loud in my head. I have so many thoughts going through my head. And it's really not even my head. I would argue it's actually through like the vocal box, this larynx or whatever, that I'm actually sub-vocalizing these things, that I'm saying it in my head, to myself, and I'm hearing it. And I'm blocking out the silence. Maybe that's why I'm not sleeping well. Maybe it has little to nothing to do with how loud it is outside and more to do with what's going on inside of me. And to take this to the next level, maybe so much of our political discontent and our political strife doesn't come from what's actually happening outside of us, but what's happening inside of us. The fear that we have of certain secrets of ours coming out, the anger that we have for decisions we made in the past that didn't work out, or decisions we didn't make, because a lot of times we get angry at ourselves for not doing certain things. Or just this seemingly constant conflict we have in ourselves of not knowing what to do. Should I go left? Should I go right? Should I take the job? Should I leave the job? Should I marry this person? Should I marry this other person? Should I have a kid? Should I not have a kid? Should I have 2 kids? What about 3 kids? Should little things, should I get an iPhone? Should I get an Android? Should I not have a phone? Should I get this plan or that plan? There's so many choices that we're making these days that I can see it driving a lot of internal conflict in myself. And I can imagine it doing the same for you as well. And maybe this is why we have so much external conflict, is because we can't, or we're not resolving the internal conflict. And so we just project this internal conflict on everyone else. And or rather, maybe not even project the internal conflict, but try to project that we are internally coherent to other people, that we have everything figured out and we have all our ducks in a row and all these different things. And yet we don't. And so it doesn't come out clear. we do one thing and then we do the complete opposite, and then we feel so angry at ourselves for that hypocrisy. I can't believe you're such a hypocrite. I mean, if we recognize it, I can't believe you're such a hypocrite. Why would you do this? Why would you do that? We need to all be, we, the singular we, need to be all running in the same direction. We need to be on the same page. We need to be presenting this image to the world that everything is tick, 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 tick. Everything is perfect and aligned. But it's not. We're not internally consistent. Come on now. Come on. I don't know. I'm not. Maybe you are, but I doubt it. I strongly doubt it. I think most of us just try our best to present a highlight reel to other people without showing them the inconsistencies in beliefs and actions that we have. This swirling conflict inside of us about should we do this or that. We say, oh no, this is my decision and I am confident this is the perfect decision to make. Really? Are you 100% confident? Are you really, or are you just pretending to be so certain on this answer? I think you have a lot more doubt inside of you, but okay. So to kind of tie this all back in, there is a chance that we in the US may face some form of civil war coming up. But I want to quote something that was in the article I read about the dying Russians, and it was called The Dying Russians. Let me see if I can find the quote. It was much more powerful than I thought it would be. Here we go. So basically, the author says, back in the United States after a trip to Russia, I cried on a friend's shoulder. I was finding all this death not simply painful, but impossible to process. It's not like there's a war on, I said. But there is, said my friend, a somewhat older and much wiser reporter than I. This is what civil war actually looks like. It's not when everybody starts running around with guns. It's when everybody starts dying. This hit me hard because perhaps we're already in some form of civil war where so many of us are dying from diseases of despair, from lack of hope, from lack of worth, perceived lack of worth, for believing that we don't matter. So I think this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to focus on this. We have a huge opportunity right now. The world is craving for answers, for solutions, for help. The world. Gosh, I just talked the other day about how I don't like when people say a certain group of people certainly feel this way. Anyways, I believe that so many of us want to matter, that we want to have meaning in life, and that more than anything, we want to feel alive. We're tired of feeling numb. We're tired of the anger and the fear driving us to this numbness and disconnection with life, and that we actually want to feel strong, and we want to feel capable, and we want to feel loved, and we want to feel full of life. All aspects of life. And so we have an opportunity right now. We can continue to talk about politics and all these external situations and how we need to fix the external situations. Or another option is we can start shifting to pay attention to what's going on with us internally. We can start telling people how we're feeling. The full range, the full spectrum of emotion. And start to bring our hearts back together again. All right, y'all. I feel excited for this. May not seem like it, but I feel much stronger and more confident right now than I have in the last couple months, if not years. That this is the direction that I want to go in, is to help people and to help myself feel and pay attention to how we feel. Alrighty, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful day, meaning I hope you feel whatever you want to feel. If you want to feel angry or sad or excited or confused or joyful or bliss, or this, feel it all. Go out, relax, or not. I just want you to feel however you want to feel, and it's okay. Thank you.